Welcome to a new episode of Mobility and Inclusion. I am your host, Harout Markarian, and my special guest today is John MacLaren, who spent 38 years working first as a U.S. Navy in the intelligence field as cryptologist, and then as a U.S. Navy SEAL in direct action work. After active duty, he worked as a private contractor and business owner specializing in personal protection, threat assessment, pedophile prevention and reporting, fugitive and trafficked personnel retrieval, and other safety related jobs. John was voted one of the top 100 most influential trainers slash mentors of the 20th century for my fitness and health industry work. He is the lead instructor and national director of the U.S. Navy SEAL candidate program in the country. Coach Mac, as you're also known, delivers security, safety, and leadership seminars around the country. He maintains a cutting edge understanding of threat assessment and violence prevention and response, plan implementation, passive and active lockdown techniques, and responses to active shooter scenarios.
There's no way I'm going to be able to keep up with this. There's no way. I should
No.
just go now.
You should not go now.
No.
This is, and again, I'm going to stop here because
Okay.
if I continue to list this man's accomplishments, knowledge, and the impact he had and continues to have today, we would need several other episodes. Coach Mac, welcome to the show.
It'll let everybody know how old I am, actually. If you continue, it just lets everybody know I'm like 140 years old. So
Hey, that's
thanks for having me.
I think that's a privilege to everyone around you.
It's
you
my
know?
birthday this week, actually, too. So
Oh, really?
someone said the other day, "Boy, you have a long list of things you've done." And I said, "Look, I'm really old, and I've stayed busy. You're bound to accomplish something. If you stay this busy for this many years, you're bound to accomplish something."
Well, I have another saying that when you go to college and you stay there long enough, you're bound to get a degree, right?
Exactly. I'm certain to pass something along the way.
No. All jokes aside, though, I met Coach Mac in September.
Yeah.
We met in September. I took, I did the Navy SEAL training with you guys, and that was a very impactful moment for me personally. And meeting the guys, meeting the younger generation that you're mentoring to go to their BUDS training, do their specialized path in the military. It was very fulfilling experience for me, and I appreciate you for giving me that opportunity.
Well, thank you. You actually did well. And of course, I loved when you came down with your family as well, because we don't see it all the time. So I always think it's something that your kids will never forget, is watching you work that hard and doing those things. You know, we have a saying there that you don't work this hard and not find out exactly who you are.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think it even helps your whole family. So it's great to have you down there.
Yeah, no, and I plan on coming more often and bring the kids more. I would like them to go out and experience that all the things that we've gone through through our trainings, right? To see the kind of work that we're putting in, and I rather have them see that than sit in front of the TV or a computer, right?
All right. If you're going to come down, I'll stay alive one more year. I'll stay alive one more year for it. See what I can do. I'll see if I can accommodate.
Awesome. So first of all, thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I also want to extend my condolences to the family of Kyle Mullen, I think his name was.
Yes.
To this SEAL organization and to you. I think he fell ill after his Hell Week, and then he passed away in the hospital, correct?
He did, yes. The ongoing investigation. So the details of what medical issues, but he completed Hell Week, and then whatever had occurred in Hell Week had cost him enough where he started to crash and some sort of medical issue. So, yeah, it's a big loss. It's always losing any teammate or losing anyone in the SEAL teams is always a big deal. In training, it echoes across the country instantly, because in my program here, I have one job, and that's that everybody remains healthy and does this. And regardless of what the medical condition is, it's my responsibility. So I always say it's nothing is anyone's fault. But it's all my responsibility. So I'm sure it'll be a shockwave throughout the community and throughout every military's training communities as they learn from whatever happened there. and make adjustments. So it is a loss that's felt. I've been in such an odd mood all week, even though unrelated to me. I don't work in the active duty command, and I did not know that candidate. So, but I send hundreds of kids into young men and women. But I'm old enough where I call them kids. But I send hundreds of kids a year into different Tier 1 military training programs. And I have yet to lose one who I've trained, meaning someone even loss of life in combat. But if I keep in this job, it will come a day. So not looking forward
hopefully not. But, again, our condolences to the Mullen family and to the whole SEAL organization.
Thank you.
Let's talk about direct action, Team Eagle One. It was founded over 10 years ago.
It was. Team Eagle One actually started as a military contract. It was a contract begun by the Navy. It's I always say I have a very high level of diversity in my program, but the Navy actually started it to specifically to look at increasing diversity in the SEAL teams. It is now open. I train the Marine Corps officers, officer candidates. So the standards there, the program was actually designed when I came in, they wanted to increase diversity. And when I started to look and run the Southern California areas at Team Eagle One, I realized there were so many. I only have a few strengths in the world, and one of them is noticing a pattern of what removes obstacles to success and what creates success in performance, culture, creation, different things. I'm super curious, and I just want to know what is it that gets in our way, and what do I have to do to remove that so that I can perform better mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, however you want to phrase it. So I took a look at the program when I first came in and realized it was being run much like the other Navy preparatory programs, which means an incredibly low level of success, high level of injury. That is pretty standard in a military preparation program for candidates coming into the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Is in our case the Navy, but it's pretty standard that the preparation level is extremely low. It's also by design. You know, they want to get more people in the military, so they tend to under-prepare them so they don't scare them away. You know, that's something the military has been pretty clear about with me over the years, and that's fine. Their job is, I always say, their job is to get you safely on the bus. It's my job to make sure that you can raise the bar in your destination programs, what I call it. So, and have the right character, physical development, mental, emotional. So I took a look at that program and 10, 11, 12 years ago and said, look, if you let me run with this and revamp the program, then we will raise the bar of success and attract more people. This was a very new concept for the Navy then, and it is still new today. It's a very, very slow moving train there. So they said, well, okay. And I said, give me 6 months. I said, I hear all your concerns. Give me 6 months and I'll show you low to no injury instead of your 30% injury rate, and a high level of graduation success with great character, great integrity. One of the things special warfare requires is kind of an inside out approach. And that is actually not what we're very good at in the active duty SEAL teams. We're good at we're going to make you so great on the outside, and there's a strong possibility that you might be melting down on the inside. We see that more and more. So the Navy is just beginning to take a look, just beginning to recognize in the last few years that they have a serious issue. But as always, it's a slow-moving train. It could take them decades to catch up. So there's a few outside programs in the country like Team Eagle One. Well, the bottom line is in a short 6 months, we had created such a success rate. And what I was trying to demonstrate is that integrity matters, first and foremost.
Absolutely.
If you are coming to, which you have been, you have trained with us.
I did.
If you've trained with our program, then one of the first things you hear is, I always say, I'm always going to tell you the truth as I know it. And if I find that I haven't, I will correct it. And that alone attracted a lot more candidates, because all militaries, this is not a Navy thing, military pipeline programs tend to run a bit of a bait and switch, where if I'm the Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines, I want to get you in. So I will tell you that you're prepared when statistically 96% failure rate says you're not prepared. And one of the first things I took a look at is, I'm going to tell you the truth, always. always to the best of my ability, and then I'm constantly going to be taking a look at, same thing with when I work with corporations and corporate culture, I'm going to be taking a look at what are the obstacles to you creating a lasting culture, to you creating higher level performance. That's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Higher level lasting performance is a culture. So we took a look at that, and within 6 months, it was different. So then I started to run testing nationally. Was hired by a friend of mine, Chief Rob Roy, fantastic mentor and coach as well, and started to work. The contract ended. Long story short, long story not so long, as I have a way of rambling. The contract ended, and I decided that our program in Southern California was so successful that I just kept it going, and I just self-funded it. I just kept, I work full-time, so I was funding the program for the last 10 years, actually. So even when I turned it into a nonprofit, it was mostly self-funded nonprofit until the need grew so great in the country. I mean, last year was 2,700 young people hub, because we work with civilians as well for academic, relationship, confidence, achievement, and then 2,610 the year before. And I realized I just couldn't. I'm a working stiff. I just couldn't fund it alone, and I didn't have the time to do both. Absolutely. So I started to actually work on actively funding and whatnot. So it's coming along. But that's the focus. Remove the obstacles. Please go ahead.
Since we're talking about funding, let's talk about what are the best ways of funding Team Eagle One?
Right helping us out. Yeah. I tell you, you'd make my day. I am in the truest sense a military person and a military mind. So asking anybody to help me out, I am the person who thinks I should bleed more, sweat more, and be more tired at the beginning and the end of everything. So I'm way beyond what I can do alone. So we are a nonprofit, 501c3, Direct Action Incorporated. And we are just getting our program in a less intense version than you attended, in a less intense physical version. Since our program has also just teaching elements. We teach Absolute Responsibility series, which is our leadership biomechanics series. So our website is directaction.us, directaction.us. And we would love corporate sponsorships, everybody reaching out. We have one of the most progressive female programs. Actually, not one of the most. We have the most progressive female programs, where the males have a 96% chance. They only have currently, the males in the BUDS program and most of the Spec Ops, they have a 7.9 to 11% success rate. That makes a female, given the biological hormonal differences of 30 to 60% strength, organ rate of recovery. I could geek out on this, but I would say only NASA uses more science than we do, or than I do. And on a good day, I think I have NASA beat. So, so if you have a 7% success rate for men, then you have a 100% failure rate for women. Absolutely. Right? Because that's just a biological difference. And so there's real science that goes into training. There's real science that goes into psychology, confidence, everything. So funding us, wow, you would make 10,000 futures happen. And our program, when I designed this program, one of my missions was I wanted to raise the caliber and standard of incoming folks to the teams, to the SEAL teams. And then we started to add other special operations teams. And then now I add all branches of service. So all branches of service are included in our program. Plus we have civilians. One of the benefits and intended consequences of leadership biomechanics and the way we use performance biomechanics and the chemistry of neuroscience and behaviors is that I lost my train of thought a little bit here. So is that across the board, we have really shifted the paradigm.
Okay.
So we will reach about 10,000 people with the right support. I mean, I wish everybody could understand what we're talking about today, the brain chemistry and the neuroscience of actual behaviors, all that negativity we're experiencing, everything when people say, just be positive. Yeah. Well, you have to know how.
Exactly.
You have to know how. So any corporate sponsorships, all those things like that, we're a great place to donate money to. We can make $1 seem like 10. So
Absolutely, and I can vouch for that. Again, I've been part of the training 3 times, and I intend to be part of it more times. But
now I've guilted you into it. Don't worry, I have no
yeah,
problem
no, no,
using guilt to motivate people. I'm like,
no,
are you sure? Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. No, this is something I enjoyed. So, and I can vouch for this man really shaping the next generation in the best way possible. You talked about integrity, discipline. You talked about coming from the inside out, right?
Yeah.
Building someone from the inside out. We don't even see people in the real world outside working from the inside out.
Yeah.
Everybody focuses on the external.
It's shocking, because I didn't make it up. I didn't make up
Yeah.
neuroscience. I didn't write The Allegory of the Cave.
Yeah.
I didn't, this is nothing new. So we didn't write this. But one of the things about 15 years ago, I really started to put work into understanding what we now call neuroscience and the behaviors of it. What makes a difference and why? What's the difference between a foot soldier and a samurai? For instance, and why? Well, now because brain chemistry is so much more measurable, we have enough scans and ability to measure that you can take the things you thought were valid and you can actually at least get farther down that road.
Yeah.
So, what we're doing by a good incoming program, prevention is response. My business has always been in violence prevention and response, post-traumatic stress. With the right kind of training, we've minimized your potential of having 4 marriages. Maybe we've knocked it down to 2 on a good day, maybe even 1. All those things. That's confidence, sense of achievement, all these. One of the things I teach to young folks is that confidence is not something you just have. It's developed.
You
It's
build
developed.
it, yeah.
And it's developed every single time we experience any change and we live. Your brain says, wow, we got to sit in this chair. I was a little anxious. I lived.
Yeah.
That's confidence building right there. So it's really, really simple, but we're getting inundated with things that fire our limbic system, put us in fight, flight, or freeze. So our adrenaline cortisol's up. If you watch the news, you're traumatized every day, even when you agree. We're in fight, flight, or freeze when we agree. I know, isn't that horrible? And we go there. So the same thing that makes a well-balanced Navy SEAL operator is the thing that adds confidence to the folks at your company and corporation. So
Absolutely.
It's an incredible time for me. This is the good fight for me.
Yeah.
I've been in a lot of, I've done the domestic violence work, pedophile prevention, taken some of the most extreme domestic violence cases because it's very hard to get police response in today's world. I still take them when they're extreme enough where someone's actually in danger, and it's all chemistry. Everything's chemistry. Where I get calls every week from parents and people saying I'm anxious or I'm depressed, and I think, great, that means your head's working. If you're anxious all the time, it's great. Your brain is designed to be negative.
Yeah.
It's hardwired, as you know, because you and I talk about this.
Yes.
And I watch your work you do. Our brain is hardwired to be negative. It's hardwired to actually minimize yourself. I use expression in training that your brain is hardwired to make you average or just less than average.
Yeah.
So we have to learn to retrain it. And it's not natural because it's so safe. If I make you if you're terrified all the time, you're going to stay home on the couch watching some Blue Bloods or episodes of Yellowstone. Stay right there at home. Not going to go anywhere else.
I was going to actually, this is a good segue to go into the uncertainty.
Oh,
right?
God, my favorite word. My least favorite word.
I mean, you're talking about how we tend to stay in the safe zone, right? And the comfort zone. And we avoid anything that remotely suggests an uncertain situation. But that, from what you're saying right now, that's actually when our mind is working.
Yes. And I love what you said, because the way you phrased it is we're staying where it's safe. Actually, it's that we're designed to be uncomfortable and be okay with it, because uncomfortable keeps me looking around saying, oh, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Whereas our comfort level stops asking. So our brains are, especially until the age of 25 or 26, which is like 100 years ago for me, but 25 or 26, they're biologically not advanced enough, not mature enough to actually have a really active prefrontal cortex.
Yeah.
So the thing they're best at is saying immediate gratification and avoid that because it's going to take resources. Sensible. It's going to take resources. So I love what you said is uncertainty, because so many great researchers, and of course through just hundreds and hundreds or 1,000 years of writing, yeah, absolutely, have been talking about this. Your brain is designed to go into fight, flight, or freeze to some degree, prepared for an emergency when it experiences uncertainty or change. So oftentimes people say, what kind of change? Any
change.
Waiting for your next question. My brain is ready to go. Is there a saber-toothed tiger in this room? There's another question coming up. Could I get eaten at the same time by this question? Yeah. So any change. That's what's so amazing to me is you look at the brilliance of people. One of the things I talk to folks a lot about is listen for people's brilliance, because it puts you back in your prefrontal cortex. You know, I grew up thinking people weren't that smart, and I started looking around thinking, oh, no, it's actually that we're brilliant, but our natural way of being is actually more to trend towards the negative and fight, flight, or freeze. So uncertainty is a big word. We're going to experience it every day, and what you do is what when we call control, fear, anger, depression. You know, what we do when we experience it is whether we gain confidence or lose confidence.
And I was going to say that's going to also build your confidence as you put yourself through more uncertain situations and you conquer that terror barrier. You're going to build your confidence even higher and higher. And
you know what's amazing? We did not list a single thing about being better than someone else, being worse than someone else. Your confidence is unrelated to other people.
Absolutely.
You know, sense of achievement, unrelated to other people. And that's what I've listened to you speak so many times. And I think, see, it's all right there. It's not that people are copying each other. It's that our brains work in a similar way. And our brains are designed to compare ourselves initially, and we keep having to train it. I had a candidate the other day say, it's hard to work around people that are better than me. And I said, well, if you keep working at it, you're going to be so inspired that you will only work around people who have an area that is far beyond you. And when I train, I have Marine Corps and Navy officers in my program. And I would say, be aware, if you need to be the best person in the room, you're all going to get killed. Or your company's going to die, or all these things. I need everyone to be better at me. I'm just responsible. I'm responsible. Jocko Willink said something in a podcast once. He said, if I'm doing a great job leading, my job becomes holding my people back because they're so on fire that it might create a vacuum in the surrounding environment. I'm summarizing and everything, but I loved his phrasing is that a great leader isn't having to drive his people. He's having to actually pace them, because they will overwhelm the surrounding environment.
Absolutely, yes. And you always talk about finding something you like about people.
I find something you like about everyone. When I got out of the Navy, I was good at 3 or 4 things. Not a single one of them happened in this room right here. You know, and I got out, and of course, super confident until the change and uncertainty. So I would even go to a job interview. And this is one of the things I think makes it so hard for veterans. It's not about combat. They could be admin people, whatever. They haven't ever looked for a job. They've simply had to keep performing and pass some exams and advance in their jobs. Like, it's actually an incredible environment for young folks, because you get to be confident and have a sense of achievement. But I would start to go to interviews or deal with people, and I would go in there and think, well, I'm kind of an anxious wreck. I thought, I've been on fire. I've been in 17 different countries, don't speak the language, performing in every one. I thought, I've been on fire. So I kind of stumbled on this, as we do. We stumble on our own lessons. And it was, find something you like about everyone. Because if I'm anxious, I'm thinking about me. I am uncomfortable. And so I'd walk in the room and I'd say, oh, great glasses, you know, whatever, just in my head. And that would get my prefrontal cortex going. And then, of course, somebody would see that I noticed them instead of me. I'd see somebody's ratty old tennis shoes and think, man, they must be saving those for years. Those are the most worked tennis shoes I've ever seen. Even now we're smiling about it because that's your prefrontal cortex.
Absolutely. And the one thing, to your point, one thing I remember you saying in one of the trainings that I was out there, when I was like breathing very heavy, and you said something, and I was barely hearing you talk.
You're fortunate to do that. La 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 la. I can't hear you. I
Oh
can't
my
hear
God! I
you.
was like literally like making an effort to hear you to hear
I
you.
can't believe this doesn't hurt my feelings, but
I was like, and I heard you say, um, stop breathing that heavy because it's not about you. It's about
Mhm.
everybody who's around you.
Yeah. And it
You
brought
know?
your hearing back up, huh?
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes. When we go into fight, flight, or freeze, you'll hear people say, oh, you get tunnel vision. But you also get tunnel hearing and tunnel thinking. You get tunnel blood flow. You get restricted everything. You know, when we're upset or we're saying something negative,
Mhm.
there's test studies that show our IQ drops up to 30 points,
Wow.
what I call our available IQ,
Yeah.
meaning I simply can't access the resources that
Mhm.
I have. My immune system changes just like that.
Yeah.
So as soon as I point it out, and people are often berating people, but that's a natural response you have.
Mhm.
Is the most important thing your body says is, I am the most important thing here. And then you get reminded and go, no, I'm going to keep breathing.
Yeah.
I'm not at the top of Everest.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pass out here. And your hearing comes back because we get tunnel vision, tunnel hearing, and tunnel thinking. So, I often use the description when you're driving down the road and a car's going to cut you off. You've been enjoying your music, but now it's the most annoying sound in the world because those resources have been sucked out of your prefrontal cortex, and all you can think is, am I safe? Am I
Yeah,
safe?
yeah,
Suddenly,
absolutely.
your favorite music, you're turning the stereo down and you don't want to hear your passenger. And of course, that's when they're side driving, backseat drivers are chiming in. So, yeah, just noticing your breathing is a great activator to a great moment to minimize your fight, flight, or freeze
Mhm.
system, and then activate. Because if your body's panting for breath, of course your body responds and says, "We might be in trouble.
Yeah.
Better pay attention to this." We're essentially suffocating in some way. That's why we're breathing so heavy. So,
Absolutely. No, and again, I've joined your training and it was great, and I was very active all my years.
mhm. You
Uh,
did great, by the way. People get killed the first. I mean, not dead, really.
yeah.
People get brutalized the
Yeah.
first day because I always say this training's biblical.
Yeah.
It's designed to exceed the standards of required to graduate from the SEAL team, and it's not like you get to go out there and say, "Oh, we're going to redo the first day for you." It is that
Yeah,
you
it's like
throw yourself into the fire. You did really
absolutely.
well.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it, at after that training, I was alive. I was alive after that training.
Brilliant, brilliant.
It's it's amazing. No matter how much I talk about it, I'm not gonna do justice. I mean,
Yeah,
everybody I think should at least try it once in their lifetime. If you don't plan on joining any
yeah.
military organizations, at least try this type of exercise once because it can do wonders for you.
And you know what's amazing? It just said too is you're really alive. Um, There's an expression in the SEAL teams. You're capable of 10 times more than you think you are. And of course, we hear this a lot. Our heads are constantly holding us back. So the fact that you said, I'm just going to go do whatever they do, it probably won't kill me.
Yeah.
If I do life insurance, family's probably happy. They're like, high five. So, um, but when you do it, you're actually waking up part of yourself in your head, just your brain.
Yeah,
Of course, your body's on fire, but your head is really saying, wow, this is how much more I am right now.
absolutely.
Not in 6 months, not if
Yeah,
I took
yeah.
a class. This is how much more I was right now.
Yeah,
Is
I
because
love the way you said it, like right now.
yeah,
That matters a lot. People forget to live in the moment, and then they plan 6 months from now or the
it's hard
class
to
that.
think in the future when you're there unless you're thinking, is there any way I can get the heck out of here?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I always say. They're not worried about where the next paycheck's coming from,
Yeah.
anything. I'm right here, right now.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's I love how you said alive, even the look on your face, because you realize, wow, if this is only 10% of me, I've got to figure out how to get. I don't care about the 90. Let's get the next 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the next 10%?
Absolutely. And and I remember I was running on the sand, and there was no one watching me, right? And I was dead last, pretty much, from all the other candidates that regularly train with
Hmm.
you. And there was about maybe another 100 feet to the pier post, and I'm like, in my head, you talked about how your head fights against you,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So I'm like, there's 100 feet, and I'm like, what's 100 feet? Nothing, and I already ran 4 miles to get there, or quarter of a mile, or maybe a little bit more to get to that pier. And I was in my head, I was going like, "Hey, turn around right now. Who's gonna notice? You know, it's like who's gonna notice?"
Can I trip and fall like I did when I was 8?
Yeah, yeah,
Is there
exactly.
any way out
But
of this?
but then you look at it. I'm like, who are you tricking? Only yourself. You know, it's like no one cares whether you go to that post or not.
I always ask when I work with candidates. I was at USC actually working with the midshipmen about a week or two ago, and people talk. I said, "Give me some leadership traits," and they said, "Okay." And someone comes up with integrity. And see, here's a moment of uncertainty. This is why I started to do all this. I said, "What's integrity?" Well, all 100 of them went silent. You could feel it. One, it was the first in-person group I've done in a while because everybody's COVID terrified, and so I loved it. You could feel it go, which you can't feel on Zoom, and the whole room went silent. And I said, "It's amazing how your brain's scrambling for what integrity means because we don't have integrity.
Yeah,
It's not a thing."
yeah,
It's not a thing. And so when you said, nobody's watching. And so finally someone said, what? They're like, oh, do the right thing when no one's watching. I said, look, you're there. I said,
yeah, yeah,
someone's always
exactly.
watching.
Yeah,
It wasn't about anyone else. It was about your brain. And this is why I love listening to you talk because you so clearly define. I was going to go to my limbic system, and then my prefrontal cortex said, "No, you're not.
yeah,
You're not. We're
yeah,
not going there.
yeah,
You can try to sit there, but we're not 8.
yeah.
We're going to come
Not there
back. We're
yet.
going to,
Yeah.
as I say, I use the expression, when you're ready, come back to now."
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and it's amazing. The show is called Mobility and Inclusion, and you talked about
I
culture.
love the title. I was going to ask you about it, so please.
Yeah. So initially, when I came up with the title of the podcast, I also have a book called Mobility
Hmm.
and Inclusion, and it also mostly geared towards people with disabilities, right? But before I go into the disability side of things, I want to ask you, when we talk about inclusion, Team Eagle One is all about diversity, right? And why did you think that was the best? And not that you didn't think it before, but you said that diversity kind of made the program better.
Mm.
And why is that? I'm curious to know.
Let me take your words. A good program creates diversity. Super important topic to me because we use the phrase diversity and inclusion. And I say, if I have to actually go after that phrase, what I could potentially create is division and exclusion.
Yeah.
So I was just working with a corporation several months ago, and I sat in there, knew this great group of fantastic, well-intentioned folks talking. And since I teach brain chemistry all the time, when people talk, I'm listening to how their head works, and I love it. People are brilliant. You also get to hear when you really get some practice at it, and like you have, because I know you hear that way, is you start to hear their limbic system firing in every word. It's like you'll hear the voice change and think, oh, we're just sliding into a higher level of fight, flight, and freeze. So the thing that I would offer is when the Navy said, initially with our program, when it was a Navy contract, they had said this was all about diversity. I said, well, you're not going to create diversity by going after diversity. I said, create an amazing program
Yeah.
with the right chemistry and leadership training and whatnot, and people come out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
And so um,
It becomes enabling people more than anything else, right?
yeah,
And you attract the right.
I ask executives this. If you have to check the box and say, you know what, we don't have many brown-eyed people here. We have 3 blue-eyed people. We have 1 green-eyed person. And we don't have many brown-eyed. And look at all the left-handers we have in the room. Should we hire some right-handers? And I always think that's the question I actually have is why? What's the difference? Meaning, what is it? Because I love different cultures. Whenever I go to another country or different areas of this country, I love the differences. If I go to Texas, it's different. West Virginia, it's different. If I go to Orange County, it's different, right?
Yeah.
35 miles south, we've gone to a different state. And I love it. So with Eagle One, I find I'm stuttering a little bit because it's so simple in my head, but it's hard to put into words, that if you are actually developing people in the way their prefrontal cortex works, in other words, what do you and I need to do to create a workplace that is so highly efficient and has great systems, supportive systems, but also highly efficient? So what I actually found is all I had to do is do what I thought promoted performance inside and out. And the next thing you know, I looked up and I was like, of course, yeah, as you know, everybody's wet and sandy. They all look alike. It doesn't matter. So I always joke when they're all standing there, because it'd be 35 of them, as you know, everybody's wet and sandy and covered in sand. I'm like, look, every one of you looks alike. This is inclusion. This is diversity and inclusion right here. But one of the amazing things, and I think people may not get it, is that they actually go after a target instead of saying, who am I as a person? Who am I as a person? Is this person going to attract people? Is my awareness high enough? Is my learning high enough? Am I attractive? And then I could go after, hey, I'm in an area where there's only 2 types of people because I'm in the middle of Wyoming somewhere. Or not. We're in the middle of LA. Yeah. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting 238 dialects a day, right? Absolutely. That's the beautiful part of this city is you don't even realize how diverse it is until you leave. Yeah. And then you're sitting somewhere thinking, wow, this is so weird. There's only like 5 different nationalities represented right here. How's that possible in any one place? You can't. So what I have found there is when you look at inclusion or diversity, I have to ask myself, what am I not doing? How is my brain not working? That somehow it's shutting a door on people. Now, there's geography, of course, but we don't have that issue so much here. We can drive 10 miles and change to, first generation, second, third, 23rd. It doesn't matter. We have everything here. So when I work with companies, one of the things I always look at is, who are your executives? Because it doesn't matter what guideline if it's not who you are. If your prefrontal cortex isn't firing on your serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin levels, you will not attract and maintain people. It doesn't matter whether they have brown eyes, blue eyes, right-handed, left-handed. Absolutely. So I love this. Of course, my brother, when he was alive, was a quadriplegic and an amputee before that, and then a quadriplegic and an amputee. So when I first met you in the mobility aspect, I thought, no, you're speaking my language. But it's a process, and the process is you, as you know, because that's why we do this, right?
Absolutely.
The process is you. So all of a sudden I turned around over years and I thought what the Navy couldn't target, they couldn't create an opportunity by targeting something. And I said, no, if you make the right program, and then if it's not diverse according to the population you're in, I have to ask myself, what is it I don't know? Yeah. It's not,
or maybe
what am I not
missing out on a great talent or
yes. And what is it that I don't know that's not opening those doors? Yeah. Is it that I need to be 5 miles away? Because, there could be anything. So I love it. Our program is probably one of the more diverse programs around, but that's an intended consequence of amazing.
I love it. Yeah.
It's an intended consequence.
It's not the design. It's just the consequence of
you don't get a great program. Yeah. And you don't get, and here's the biggest thing, as soon as you lower standards, people get it. Yeah. So the single greatest thing I find is that people thought creating diversity and inclusion, you often see companies or systems or police departments say, oh, we'll just change the standards. And I think, I've never met a culture or a group or a height or a brown-eyed person or a blue-eyed person group that doesn't have awesome in it. Yeah. So if you're not attracting awesome, it's not about, it's actually your standards probably aren't high enough.
Absolutely.
Personally, right? Personally. So when I look at executives, one of the first things I look at is I'll sit in their meetings and I'll watch how the email responses are. And I'll watch to see people, whether the younger folks roll their eyes in there or something. And I think, see, they're telling me who their executives are. Yeah. We all sound great when we get called to the principal's office, but they are telling me who they're really working for. So diversity inclusion is actually pretty simple. It's the hard part is whether I'm willing to be the person. What's prejudice and bias? Limbic system. Yeah. When you're in fight, flight, or freeze, your prejudice and bias comes up. There's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I teach from it constantly. Your prejudice and bias minimizes as your prefrontal cortex activates. So if your company is stressing you out, it's stressing everybody else out, it doesn't matter who you hire. Yeah. You're just going to be rolling through people. You're going to be bringing up your lawsuits. It's crazy. And it's so simple, except that I have to do the work. Yeah. And I think that's the challenge there. They're saying, oh, we could just hire our way into checking the boxes. I think, no, you can't. You look good for a minute. Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately,
and that's very well said, by the way. Yeah, you look good for a minute,
Yeah.
because the person that you're going to hire is going to realize very quick what you're about, and then he's going to last there.
Yeah, it's something. When I was in a meeting, I was just assessing a meeting once about diversity and inclusion because I love the topic. I love to work on it with groups. Because it is really a self-development program saying, look, there's a reason that you have to target groups, and the reason is we don't have the right place for them to work at.
Yeah.
Any group, it doesn't matter. And then I always start with, I went to a corporation not too long ago, and I just went to some of the stores and I just talked to some of their people and said, hey, I just want to see what your day is like. And they said, we're scared. They said, we're scared. We don't get paid much money. The company keeps us at 10 hours a week so they don't have to pay benefits. So we have to work at 4 jobs to make 40 because it's pervasive. This was up in Washington State, and it's pervasive there. And she said, we're scared because the police have come out and they straight up say, we don't respond to what they call smash and grabs, shoplifting. And they said, we're scared. And when I went to the CEO, I said, your folks are scared. I think you're on the verge. If there's one thing, another one of my strengths is I can see when bad is coming, what I call the look before the look before the look. So we can see when bad is coming.
Yeah.
And she said, you're just making that up. We exit interview. And this is why this is one of the examples of why there's such a problem in corporate America in creating a lasting culture. It's always this roller coaster. We check the boxes, but then people saw through that, and we check the boxes and they saw through that. And I said, she goes, well, are you saying that? Or are you just making that up because you? And I said, no, I'm quoting. And she said, I've never heard that before. And we exit interview. And I said, I'm sorry, you're interviewing people who quit and expecting them to really care and actually share with you. That ship has sailed. Next, we went out to the managers meeting. First 2 managers stood up and said, we can't get people to show up for work because they're so scared. And I thought, see, these managers have been delivering that message to that CEO for years.
Yeah.
But she's so used to not listening to them that it was there. That's not her fault. That's the fact that her limbic system is firing constantly. So her clarity is down.
But it goes back to developing yourself, right?
Always. It's not some woo-woo thing. Like it's not some fluff saying, let's drink some tea, hug a tree, and meditate, right?
Yeah.
It's literally chemistry. It's neuroscience.
Yeah.
If you are stressed out all day, your bias and prejudice is increasing. That is not a racial thing. That is not a mobility thing. That is simply saying, I have to get small and save myself first. Yeah. The breath, I can't even hear you because my breath is, my heart rate is saying, save yourself, save yourself.
That was a great lesson for me.
And it's all connected, as you know, because you talk about this all the time. Look, mobility and inclusion, amazing combination of words. Because a lot of times you see how they come together, but you wouldn't naturally come across that.
I actually didn't like it. Well, initially when I came up, and I didn't come up with the title. I because it was going to be more disability related, I had some people with disabilities as my mentors, advisors, if you will, right? Because I was just stepping into this community and I didn't want to be perceived as someone dictating how things should be, right?
I get it, yeah.
So when they said mobility and inclusion, I was like, that's great. But then I saw all these people talking about inclusion, but they didn't know what inclusion really meant.
Checking the box.
Exactly.
And nothing can ruin a great word like checking, using it to check the box.
Yeah.
I watched the corporation I used to work with that I left at because I just said, look, there's too many steps just to get to ground zero here, just to get to the baseline. And they said, we're only going to hire females this next year. And I thought, good, but eventually they have to actually work with you. Eventually. Sure, there's so much talent out there, but like you said, it's personal development. And it was a train wreck on the corporate level. So it's just like, you just can't do it. And they get great news articles out of it. But I love it. It's all self-development, and your culture is who you are. What is it? It's a belief system and a knowledge. It's demonstrated beliefs based on the knowledge of your thing is culture. So it's just amazing. We're making it hard. It's effort. It's simple, but it takes great effort. But we're making it hard
but we like to be in the comfort zone.
Yes, and saying, okay, we have 6 brown-eyed people, 6 blue-eyed people. Let's call that inclusion. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Those are human beings.
Yeah.
That was not a subset. Those are human beings.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
You also help people, transition
Mm,
from I mean, maybe they went from a good situation to a worse situation or a bad situation, or with wounded veterans and stuff like that. Suicide prevention that I saw you talk about it. Uh,
yeah. I have over the last 15 years or so, I've developed a series that I call the leadership biomechanics. One of the first things I noticed in the SEAL team is who's getting injured and who isn't and why. I'm just super curious,
mhm.
right? I'm actually curious to the point I think it annoys people is I always want to know why did that happen here and not happen there?
Yeah.
And then, you know, uh, so when I started looking at that and I started looking at, our brain wants to, a lot of people don't grow up thinking about suicide, but now they do because we tell them the word all the time. So a lot of times I'll switch it to self-harm because their brain has to be more creative. Suicide says one thing.
Mhm.
So if I say self-harm, they at least have to think about things. And it's so ambiguous that they may not. So I always say if you want to increase suicide, keep saying that word.
Yeah.
Because here's what your limbic system does. Your limbic system says, oh, that sounds this really bad thing. And it files it away on the really bad day filing cabinet. So now when you think, gosh, I'm miserable. Oh, this is why. There's a question at the VA when you go, have you thought about suicide? Well, we talk about self-harm and everything. I've thought about 100,000 times. I haven't
Done.
considered it for me.
Yeah.
But now I can turn around and say, oh, this is the feeling that if somebody was pervasive and someone didn't know how their prefrontal cortex worked.
Mhm.
So mentioning a negative word actually exacerbates that. If I tell you, Simon Sinek says it, we can't think in the negative. If I tell you don't think about green monkeys, everyone now is thinking about green monkeys. So every time I tell you this horrible thing, this is how we continue racial terms. This is how we continue derogatory terms in general. Every time I tell you not to say this, you file it away. And in fight, flight, or freeze, that's the box that
Yeah.
gets open.
You access it.
The
Yeah.
box that fits what we shouldn't say to each other
Yeah.
is what opens. The behavior. So if we wanted to minimize self-harm, we would actually train for the opposite. We are reinforcing the limbic system to keep coming up with terms and saying, we're going to do 20 push-ups for X prevention. That word is now on every 4-year-old's mind. It is on every 5-year-old's mind. It is on every 7-year-old's mind. They did not naturally think of that term at 5 and 6 and 7. Maybe a small number did. But if we, so I work with a lot of veterans and whatnot when we talk about our leadership biomechanics. And guess what? I just taught a class at James Madison University for leadership biomechanics for future counselors.
Mhm.
It's the same class, slightly different vernacular because we're talking to vets, we're speaking the vets language. Your brain is your brain.
Yeah.
Your negative is your negative, and your positive is your positive. So I often say, as we said in the beginning, if people are stressed out, good. Your brain is functioning like a highly tuned 8-cylinder motor. It's just running on negative fuel,
Yeah.
and we can train it. So the veterans, the post-traumatic stress, our memories aren't going away. I don't want them to go away. This, whatever negative happened in your life, that's why we're sitting here. I don't want them to go away. What I want to do is make sure that the negative gym is not where you've done the most of your training.
Yeah, absolutely.
I use the expression, you have your negative gym and your positive gym, limbic system and your prefrontal cortex. And I think this is one of the issues we have in the SEAL team right now. We are not training leaders in the SEAL teams. We are giving them a management course and calling it leadership. So we are training them at the negative gym. They are fantastic, high-toned operators in the field. Then we say, go mentor some kids at Buds. With what skill set?
Yeah.
With what skill set? So they take their highly toned limbic system and they bring it to Bud, and they create Lord of the Flies.
But that's actually the entire corporate America like that way.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And it's so simple, but takes effort.
Yeah.
We're so used to clicking the box. I love teaching from Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons is he really spells it out. And I just did a class on it last week to say morality and ethics and prejudice and bias are way up top in their pyramid, even though I don't think he built it as a pyramid initially. Way up top in the pyramid. I said, how do you create these? I said, it's down here. It's the security issues and the physical behaviors. I have to do something. I have to figure out what stresses me out and then learn about it and learn what to do so it doesn't. Guess what? Higher demonstrations of integrity, morality, ethics, lower prejudice, bias. That's the intended benefit.
Yeah.
I didn't have to create integrity because no one has integrity, right? When I was at USC, I said, look, what do you just go to Target and you buy some integrity? What is integrity? Every time you follow through with what you committed to yourself to do, or even if you committed to me, you committed to yourself first.
Exactly, yeah.
Every time you follow through, your prefrontal cortex says, oh, I'm a little more confident and I understand the power of following through. It's all integrity is.
Yeah.
So when people look at leaderships have integrity, in the last week, I can think of things I didn't follow through with, which means I have no integrity. But I have demonstrated it many times this week. But I have no integrity because there are things I don't follow through on.
Yeah.
You know, I've let my meter run out a couple times in the last month. Low integrity. There you go.
Hey man, if everybody's gonna run their meter out and their code,
Yeah.
we're okay with that.
So, but I love what you're saying because it's so. It's not even hard. It just takes courage.
Yeah.
It takes courage to train your prefrontal cortex because our brain likes certainty, and knowing is the most ludicrous term. What, since you were a kid, what do we still talk about that's still true and hasn't changed? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. We're not even out of the trees. We're not even out of the trees. We're still up in the trees. Nothing.
When we were texting yesterday, and you know, I was talking about your accomplishment, and you told me I feel like I haven't accomplished anything, and I'm like, dude, this guy is like thinking the same way I am, because sometimes I feel like, okay, this person is hiring me because of certain criteria, and I'm like, do I really know these things? You know, it's like it surprises me sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
And there's your confidence, right? Is
Yeah.
you say, I'm just going to keep going because because there's and just watch for mutual benefit. Because then we don't know it, but it's working.
Yeah.
If there's mutual benefit, we'll go, there's working.
absolutely, absolutely.
And I love that. Somebody asked me that the other day. They said, oh, you military guys always seem so confident. I said, because it's not about right and wrong. It's about moving forward the best you can and adjusting on the way in this right here, right now. So it might look like we think we're right, but what we are is thinking we'll adapt. And that's, like you said, with corporate America, or we talk about, I wrote a blog post about mobility and inclusion, actually, about what my brother used to call the first step.
Oh, really?
If there's a step outside a restaurant, it's a sign. It's a sign of the culture in the restaurant.
Yeah.
If I have to boost his wheelchair up for that first step, it's only going to go south from there. And so he told me once, I said, we can boost you up there. And he said, I'm sure you can. But that's a sign of the culture.
Yeah.
That's why the little things matter. When I look at an executive structure and I watch the way they start and finish a meeting, if it's not on time, if they don't honor that, I already know what I'm going to find inside. That's brain chemistry. They are telling me the chemistry of themselves.
Absolutely.
And that is the culture. And so they can check all the boxes they want, but it's not going to happen. So I love working with veterans and folks in transition. And now the civilian world, tons of post-traumatic stress. All that is something so negative that I'm using it as a warning system that is overwhelming in today's world. None of us walk away. That's why administrators, people with Facebook, people with TikTok, one of the candidates said to me, I can't believe I live in a world where people can tell me I'm horrible and it actually has to translate from another language because they're on social media. He said, someone 3 billion people away can tell me how much I suck.
Yeah.
And I think that is limbic system training. And we are behind. We are behind. We can check all the boxes we want, but we are behind because we are inundated with fight, flight, or freeze training.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. You said many things that I want to touch on, like the morality and ethics things, like people applying for a job, or recently I read that they're gonna discharge, or they have discharged already, 3,000 people from the armed forces, between the armed forces and the first responders, in terms of firefighters and nurses and stuff like that, just because they're not, complying with the vaccine mandates, right? So
super challenge. Talk about some left board, what we call left board. Left board is your limbic system. The right board is your prefrontal cortex. Very challenging subjects. Yeah,
and it's the same thing is happening in the workforce. With people not wanting to get vaccinated, they're being asked to leave. And for me, well, who's right, who's wrong. It's not about right or wrong. Let's say I'm convinced that this is not a good thing for me. You know, I shouldn't, in my opinion, I should not be put in a situation where I'm choosing between
Mm,
feeding my family and, hurting,
yeah,
potentially hurting my health.
yeah. You said a lot there too, and we brought up the words right and wrong. And I have lived through a lot of presidents.
Hmm.
I'm 56 next week, so I've lived through a lot of presidents, and I can't believe it. My mom's happy that I'm still alive. I'm shocked. My mom's thrilled. Um, One of the things that I find is some parents came up to me during multiple presidents. It doesn't matter what color tie they were wearing, right? Because now we're talking about long enough where there's been a red tie and a blue tie
Yeah,
in
yeah,
in everybody's recent memory. We've had a red
absolutely,
tie, blue tie,
absolutely.
and a couple of each. So parents come up to me on any president, and they'll say, "How can you train these young folks with this administration?" And it doesn't matter. Fill in the blank. 4, 8, 10, 12, 4, 8, 12, 16. Doesn't matter
Hmm.
which administration. I always say left, right, or center. I have the same job.
Yeah,
Whatever color tie is in the White House, I have the same job. So to speak to your point about right or wrong, your limbic system, when you think in terms of right or wrong, your prejudice and bias comes up,
hmm,
your IQ comes down, your health, your white blood cell count changes. We actually get physically weaker. It is the beginning of dis-ease, if we
yeah,
think
yeah,
about the
yeah,
origin of that word. So one of the things I like to offer to folks is, as soon as you think in terms of right and wrong, it doesn't matter. They're both limbic system responses. They're both saying, I was uncertain, so I
hmm,
decided. I agree, I disagree.
yeah,
You're good, you're
yeah,
bad. I'm good, I'm bad. It's good, it's bad. And right or wrong. So as soon as we get there, because there's nothing we can do about uncertainty and change, um, and it can create anxiety for me too. And it does. That death in the SEAL team, all week I've been having to keep really sticking to my baseline to stay off of being, there's a less civilized me that
hmm,
is
hmm,
my overseas self. There's a less civilized me, right? So I really, it's a very, very strong default setting of mine, and
yeah,
it just has no place in this particular world. So when we think about terms of right or wrong, the thing I always offer to people is there's no end to that loop, because now you're in a control, fear, anger, depression loop.
yeah, yeah,
So we have to turn around and say, um, we have to try to think differently, because right, wrong, good, bad, I agree, I disagree, are all trying to create certainty. And there's that knowing thing again,
yeah.
where I can't be knowing. So what I would offer people is, I don't have an answer for your frustration, but I can tell you what's happening to you when we're busy agreeing, disagreeing, right, wrong. You know, uh, I worked in Berkeley for a couple years with the Sikh community, really fantastic. I learned so much, because amazing for me, because there's many, many first and second generation folks and families who got there, who came here to this country. And I loved that I could be fully immersed, because they have such a history, such a rich history. And I got to really see how brain chemistry works,
Hmm.
um, to help minimize the 6 and 7 generations it takes for new families and communities coming to this country to assimilate in the professional world. They might be getting straight A's, all these things. But the thing I would offer is, whenever anybody's frustrated, I got a little, when I was up there, people are very politically, it was hot. It was hot up there. And because I have a U.S. flag outside, my neighbors would stop by and they would start right in on politics. And I always said the same thing. They'd say, "Did you hear what so-and-so said?" And I would say, "No, tell me." Well, by the second or third time, they wouldn't come in with their limbic system lit up anymore,
Yeah, yeah,
because I wasn't going to help them agree or disagree, or good or
exactly,
bad, or right or
exactly.
wrong.
Yeah.
And I got to learn about them. So I suggest to people to really practice it. When you find yourself really frustrated, um, you've got to get your faculties back. You've got to get your SEAL team self back that says, I have a mission, and my mission is not to be right or wrong. It's actually to create mutual benefit, create mutual benefit. So, um, but when I was up there, I got really good at not offering an opinion, because what I found is that when we have to be right or wrong, we're still going into fight, flight, or freeze, even when we agree with each other.
Mhm.
Now we just fuel each
Yeah.
other's negativity, So
Exactly.
I have found today that I was just on the phone, and I'm constantly reminded of it. So our opinions very seldom matter. They very seldom change the game. And they certainly don't create much mutual benefit. You might go, you're right, and then the conversation's over.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I actually said, that's so interesting the way you phrase that. Now I'm encouraging the conversation. You notice how we both smiled? That's our
Yeah.
prefrontal cortex going, okay, I'm back in the game.
Yeah.
We're not agreeing or disagreeing. It's what I love about talking to you too, is I think you think this way, where you're just interested. Of course we have opinions,
Yeah.
but I'm more interested in this mutual benefit. So I've never seen a time where people have more training opportunity for their prefrontal cortex than now.
Agreed.
I've never seen a time. I grew up in a world where it appeared that if a journalist was going to not tell you the truth, they were lied to. I grew up in a world where I'd watch people get fired for trying to tell the truth when they were told not to. That is not the world that we live in. And also the truth is a varying thing. Confirmation bias. If you have a vaccination opinion, we can find a doctor who will support it.
Yeah.
If I have an opposing one, I'll find a doctor who support
exactly,
it. We'll find 6 more. So there's never been a time where it is really up to us to say, how do I activate my prefrontal cortex, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and how do I make myself interested in you? One of the tricks I often use is find somebody's brilliance, because whether I agree with you isn't important to me. I'm actually looking for your brilliance, and I'll think, wow, look how passionate you are about that. That's part of your brilliance. It's changed my life.
Yeah.
There's an expression about something I came up with about 1.5 years ago in class. Everyone is right. If you can approach a conversation and catch yourself in I agree or I disagree, you're right, you're wrong, I'm right, I'm wrong, and turn into everyone is right. Let me think about how you're right. It changed my life within like 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
I would listen to people talk and think, okay, they're describing both sides of an argument. Let me just focus on one and think about how they're 100% correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I would think, oh, I just understood them so much better. And then I could say, okay, now let's see how they're correct. And I thought, now I understand them both. It helped me navigate. And all of a sudden, what happened? Inclusivity happened, because I said, I actually think there's a meeting of the minds here on these 2 points. And they'll say, well, that is what I want, even though it didn't sound like it.
Yeah.
So that diversity and inclusion is an intended consequence of everyone is right. If I understand how you're 100% correct, and I don't mean in your opinion, I mean, how would I buy 100% into what you're saying? And then we can evolve from there.
Yeah.
But if you're wrong and I'm right, we're done. We're done. It's done.
Yeah, it's so easy to say you're wrong and I'm right.
Because your limbic system wants to close the loop and say, now I'm certain, now I know.
Yeah.
And we talked about this. There's no such thing as knowing.
Yeah, and there's no progress, right?
Yeah.
We're not knowing that.
Evolution.
Yeah,
Evolution.
exactly.
In training, and you may have heard it, we use the expression, improve your position.
Improve, yep.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
We're here. Our lives are working.
Yeah.
But we're certainly not thinking, we'd just like to flatline this right here. I know you well enough to know we're not saying this is the end of my flatline.
Yeah.
I want to move to 2,700 young folks and families last year. I want to move to 10,000 and 10 million because I'm using social media.
Mm-hmm.
I avoided cameras like the plague. But then I realized I can't help people unless I sit here.
Yeah.
I have to get out of the trench on occasion, but I'm not an actor. I don't need to be king. I want everyone to be king of their own little space.
Exactly.
And that's my job.
And that's I mean, that should matter and will matter to everyone.
Yeah.
Right. If you're the king of your own space, you're fulfilled pretty much,
So
unless
true.
you limit yourself.
I was thinking about it because someone talked about their legacy. In a perfect world, my legacy would be that you don't remember me, that there's 1 million people who are doing great things because people like you and I touched upon their lives and said, let's try everything is right.
Yeah.
Let's try find something you like about everyone.
Yeah.
Let's try every time you think, oh, they're wrong and I'm right, or I'm right and they're wrong. Maybe I just said the same thing, saying, that's so interesting how you phrase that.
Yeah.
Because I'm just a knucklehead who was curious and was sick of seeing people in pain, and sick of seeing people frustrated and irritated and post-traumatic stress and moving towards self-harm. And I thought, we're too smart for this.
Mm-hmm.
And now we demonstrate it every year with veterans and corporate folks. And I work with a lot of first responders because they don't understand what that day-to-day job is doing to them in their limbic system.
Yeah.
Someone told me the other day, they said, I'm 36 years in EMS and I can't take it anymore. I'm actually scared of self-harm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said, sitting in your class was the first time that I actually saw a light. When your limbic system is firing so often, you can't see your prefrontal cortex from there. You have to know it's there and know how to reaccess it, but you can't see it. You can't feel that positivity will ever exist again. And I don't know a single person who hasn't been there. They might not have been there long enough for it to destroy them.
Yeah.
But if someone's screaming and yelling at someone, they're certainly not saying, oh, remember that great day at the beach? Those two chemistries don't coexist.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I want to wrap it up with what I heard you say during the training. This was the first training I took.
It wasn't profanity, was it?
No, no, it wasn't. No, it was about improving your position.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's, and that to me kind of like really kept me going with the guys. Right. So and I do believe in that. I don't believe in competition, even though sometimes you find yourself competing.
Sure, because it's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a good-natured nature.
Absolutely.
There's motivation to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you innovate, and when you always improve upon your current position, you're already gonna win. Right?
And we're also unique.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's so brilliant in their combination of things that for you to compare yourself to another person would be like stealing from yourself.
Yeah.
I always say, if you were to look at comparing yourself all the time and say, well, they're still better than me, what we're losing is your combination of you.
You're not tapping into your brilliance now.
Yeah, your own sense of brilliance.
Yeah.
And because I'm comparing myself to someone else, well, that's my fight, flight, or freeze response.
Absolutely.
So of course we can all get jealous or insecure, right?
That's...
We actually need that because that activates.
a driver.
But you just said something about improving your position that I love. No science has ever found how much your prefrontal cortex is capable of. I know what your limbic system's capable of because you'll literally drop out of the system. You'll become so depressed, you'll get fired. You'll become so angry, you'll get fired. You won't have relationships. Ultimately, you can do self-harm until you eliminate yourself. As I phrase it, the purpose of the limbic system: stop input, seek relief, eliminate the relationship. No one knows what the combination, what the top end of your prefrontal cortex is. Yeah. You can always improve your position when you're focused on positivity. It will never have anything to do with anyone else except that together we improve more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mutual benefit.
Absolutely.
Mutual benefit.
Yeah.
You're so great to talk to. I really love it. It's so many terms that float around. This is just chemistry. Just chemistry. Now, if you're, and that's just for the body. We can call it quantum physics. If you're a scientist, we can call it spirituality and God. If you're religious, it's all works because they're all connected. I'm just working from here because this is what I've been given by both quantum physics and spirituality. This is what I've been given. So
Absolutely.
This is the way I explain it.
Perfectly said. Let's just remind people one more time how they can donate to Team Eagle One.
Well, thank you. Team Eagle One, you would make our day. I can't even tell you enough. Our website is directaction.us. My name is John MacLaren. People call me Coach Mac. We are a 501c3, fantastic organization, and we need your help. Our instructors volunteer almost all of their time. I have put $1.2 million of billable hours into this program in the last 10 years and almost 500,000 of personal income. I'm a regular working guy, so it is not easy. So supporting these folks, you literally are helping create the next 50 years of somebody's life. This is trajectory changing, and we are working on everything I've ever touched on: understanding consent, sexual assault, the brain chemistry we're working on is making people better parents, higher levels of confidence, achievement. Again, we run an intended consequence as we have the most diverse program I've ever seen, because that's what happens when you train people for their personal brilliance. People just show up and everybody fits in. So if you want to support us, you would make the day and the next 50 years of a whole lot of people. And I do not like asking people for help, but I need yours. So thank you.
Absolutely. No, and I couldn't have said it any better than what you just said. Coach Mac, you are truly shaping the next generation of this country, or whichever country they go out and serve.
We have, well, also, we're in about 6 countries now because of Zoom. Who knew?
Exactly.
I wish I spoke more languages, and I'm working on instructors to do that. Fortunately, so many people speak English. 6 different countries show up for our stuff. I'm just 90-year-olds and 10-year-olds on our online, because our online programs are for civilians as well. So I had no idea. I saw the value in my small area, but now there's a need, and think people like you and think moments like this is making the reach exponential. We will reach 10,000 people in person and millions this year because we're bringing up our YouTube channel where we can have 5 and 10 minute snippets. We have one of our core values is that everyone wins.
Yeah.
This is your prefrontal cortex. I meet people all the time and they'll say, well, someone has to lose. And I think, no, that's your limbic system talking. Your prefrontal cortex says every day you come to Eagle One or come to class, you should walk away with a tool that is easy to implement and that works.
Yeah.
So, it's not one of those wait 6 months. It's not an if.
Yeah.
It's not an if it happens or when. Every single day, everyone wins. As you did, you said, I was so alive.
Yeah.
Look at your face light up about how much you remembered. I just listened and acted and performed. What you see how that team is.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you were an outsider?
No.
After the first 2 minutes, of course, we're all outsiders walking into a cold room.
Yeah, I was. When I walked in, and I was thinking, and I wasn't thinking what I was getting into, but when the email said Navy SEAL training, and I didn't even see what other options were. I was like, whoop, whoop, that's where I'm going.
It's amazing. People have so much. Some of the parents have called and said, what are you doing? And I said, this is the program I always wanted to create, and now I have it, and I just need to expand it. But this is how your brain works. Everybody's killing themselves. Everybody gets that there's something amazing in them. But what happens is we keep talking about things like integrity and prejudice and bias. Your brain doesn't understand those words. So if we break it down and it doesn't matter how old you are, a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old learns the same way as a 50-year-old and a 70-year-old. Yeah. It has to be broken down in a way that's digestible. Absolutely. There's never been a need. And these kids and their families are like, God, it sounds ridiculous when you actually talk about how fast and rapid the change is. And it's permanent. You're going to have to torture them to bring them back to that left board. Your prefrontal cortex is dying to come out. Absolutely. It's just not natural. Absolutely. Needs help. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
I'm sorry, I ramble a lot. But,
no, this was
exciting.
Great information.
It's an exciting mission. This is the good fight. If I wanted to go after post-traumatic stress, sexual assault, better parenting, lower child abuse, this was the way to do it, is catching people on the way in. And then they call me when there's emergencies. I still handle emergencies. So because our legal system is not designed to handle that. Absolutely. It's not designed to work out a strategy to minimize that chaos in your life and let you get back to living. And that's what we're doing, right?
One last question. You talked about the legal system not designed to do it that way. Do you think there's a way we can impact the change or drive a change into our traditional legal system to maybe in one way or another improve in its dealings?
Yes, it's a great question, because you're also talking about, when you ask that question about can we improve that, is there a way, you're also asking, hey, can we minimize post-traumatic stress? Can we minimize alcoholism? Can we create better parenting strategies? They're all connected, right? One of the things we realize in life is that if I wanted to affect everything, I'd affect one thing positively. If I wanted to adversely affect everything, I would adversely affect one thing. There absolutely is a way. I think one of the efficiency issues is that if I go directly at a problem and I say, you are a problem, right? One of the things I talk about is a feedback loop. First, we reinforce guidelines. So when we look at a program like Eagle One or Leadership Biomechanics or working with first responders or cops or in cultures like that, a lot of times they'll say, I'll give you an example. Not in the legal system, but in sex trafficking. I worked with some first responders and some district attorneys up there with the sex trafficking unit. And they said, I want to understand why these folks don't leave. They have opportunity. We give them a place. And I said, it's not that they won't leave. They can't. your brain has to have the chemistry to be able to make that good choice and bring that down. So there's a process. We tend to go after a problem saying, this is a problem, let's attack the problem. There's a process, there's groundwork and foundational work that would have to be laid. In the same way, if we can't check the box at a corporation, it's all the same. It's all the same. So I think you're doing it. If you started to actually do leadership biomechanics or the work you're doing or all these things with a law school, you would create the change, because what you would create is a person who wasn't just responding in the either isolated no man's land of law, the administrative area, or fight, flight, or freeze, or whatever. That is very hard for the human brain, because when we're afraid, we want to focus on, you're the issue, I eliminate you. You're not the issue. When does the blame stop? Is it your mom's fault? Is it your mom's fault? Is it your mom's dad's fault? Is it the society they grew in or the country they came from? Or someone says, oh, in the 80s in Lebanon, this happened. And I think, when will you stop looking for the cause? Let's pave the way of improving the position. So I absolutely think, when I worked with USC about a week ago, some of the students came up and they said, we've been here for 2 years and we learned more about how we work and how we'll become a positive leader, navigating better outcome strategies, because that's what we're doing in this last 90 minutes than we have in 2 years. It's out there, but at an institutional level, it's way, way behind. So if someone needs it, call me. I'll donate a couple hours, or you can make a donation to the nonprofit. It's out there. And when you understand the simplicity, it's incredibly complex. When you understand the simplicity of approach to your brain chemistry, you're a rock star. So that's why I try to work with such diverse groups: first responders, ROTC folks, the future counselors, because they're going to bring this brain chemistry and leadership biomechanics awareness to their clients, to their patients.
Absolutely. And they're going to have a huge impact.
So what happens is, it's not that they can't. So you can't go right at the core of a problem and say, you stop drinking. You have to say, drinking was a reaction, not an action. It's an action, but it's an action in reaction to your brain chemistry. I have to step back and say, how can I keep working with you to create the chemistry where the desire and the need minimizes? Because as you said, just with heavy breathing, you can't hear me when you're in fight, flight, or freeze. The call of the breath, the call of the alcohol, the call of the system and who's right and who's wrong is too big. So absolutely, it's a bigger conversation, but we're not in control, but we're in charge of the direction. And we keep demonstrating it. Even, the look at the graduation rate in our program, in the programs, and the fact that those young folks are so welcoming to you, when, let's face it, it takes courage to walk up to that group. They're a bunch of hard chargers. It takes courage, by the way. I always tell people, it took courage to walk up to this group. There's your confidence building. So yes, that's a long-winded answer, I know, as all of mine are, but there's not only a way, it's a simple way, but we're in fight, flight, or freeze as a hardwired response, hundreds to thousands of times a day. And it is dictating. Your limbic system is a dictator. It is dictating our response, and it is minimizing your abilities. This conversation, right? I can feel my head going crazy on positivity,
Absolutely.
So super long-winded, I know, but there's so much of a way.
No,
it's right there.
Again, like as you're talking, I'm thinking about other things that I can ask you.
Right, because it's all right there.
But we're going to be shutting off for today.
We have this slow warm up, and all of a sudden it's like, and this, and then we're breathing underwater, and we're walking on Mars. All this great stuff.
But again, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I want to do this again. Maybe we can select one topic and we can dissect that next time.
So that would actually be great. I'd love it. And for any of your viewers or listeners, it doesn't cost anything to call and have these conversations. Like, it's right there in your corporations, in your families, in your stress level, all these things. There's a path, and it's a pure science path. It's not, we don't have to levitate ashtrays and coasters. There's a pure science path on the way out of this. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, John, for your time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.